Make sure you grab different color spray paints, different size thread edges, and everyday household items like cups or lids. My name is Arturo Lopez, and I created Spraycasso Studios back in 1999. I have then continued to show people diverse ways of creating master paintings in just a few minutes using nothing more than just spray paints and everyday household items. The beauty of this art is that you don't have to have a steady hand or know how to draw. All it requires is a little bit of imagination and some dedication. So join us, and you too can become a Spraycasso master. I will walk you through diverse techniques of creating beginner level paintings, intermediate level paintings and techniques, advanced level paintings, and we'll take your skills even further to master level paintings. So if you guys are ready to embark into a new art adventure, then grab your spray paints and materials. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Spraycasso show. Today we're going to be talking about stencils. I've had hundreds of emails asking me about my techniques and the process that I actually use to create stencils, so I'm hoping this tutorial will answer your questions. Now, this is the image that I'm going to use for my stencil. I printed this image on cardstock, so it's actually thicker than paper, and I printed it out 4 times. We're going to work in layers. Usually spray painting, we work in layers. So I'm going to go ahead and place this image in the same spot here. Make sure it doesn't move. So I'm going to tape it down. That way whenever I put the other parts to this stencil on top of it, I know that it's in the same location. I'll explain that a little bit better. So for now, let's just go ahead and place it and tape it down. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Stencil paintings are usually a lot of fun to do, however they take much longer than regular spray paints. Because as you can see here, we have to not only make the stencil, print it out, cut different sections of it, and then we have to work in layers. So every time we work on a layer, we have to wait for it to dry before we can move on. Here I'm just placing some magnets down so that whenever I use my spray paint, it doesn't go underneath, and it gives you a sharp outline of whatever your stencil is. Now, I don't have any fancy skin tone colors or light browns or anything like that, so I'm just going to go ahead and mix my own paints to create the skin color. I'm going to start with orange and then a little bit of yellow. So again, here we're working with layers, right? Our underlayer is a dark orange, and then we're going to soften that up with yellow. Okay, make sure to put this there. And see, as you can tell, the yellow is not well, it is overpowering the orange, but it's not completely covering the orange. You can still see some of that orange underneath. And then very, very lightly do some orange on top of that. Again, this may take a few tries, but if you can go to the store and buy a peach color spray can, that's great. It'll save you a lot of time. I particularly enjoy this because it helps me kind of get to know my spray paints better and how they mix together. Here we're going to be working on shadows, so I'm just going to add a little bit of black. See that? Now, another trick is knowing that if you mix orange with black, it turns into brown, and we'll do that later on in the stencil. But in this case, I don't want the character to be too brown, too dark, to where it's just going to fade into the background. Here I'm adding a little bit of red, and this is gonna help us come up with that skin tone color that I'm trying to get. So far we've used orange, yellow, orange again, a little bit more yellow, and then some red. Now they're not in thick layers, but just enough to give you a skin tone. And so we have this part of the stencil. See what I mean about working in layers? Okay, now here I cut out the eyebrows, the eyes, parts of the lips, some shadows, and I know where I can place my stencil right on top of the other one and know that it's going to fit perfectly. So I'm going to use a little bit of tape. Okay, now you don't want to push down too hard. What I would recommend is for you to actually wait until it's completely dry before doing this. Okay, it fits perfectly. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of black. There you go. Okay, let's take a look at what it looks like underneath. I can't stress out enough, guys, how important it is to make sure that you wait until the painting is dry to the touch. I can't say 5 or 10 minutes will do the trick, because as I realized in my last trip to Seattle, paintings there take much longer for them to dry. So, you know, it all depends on what kind of weather you have. In this case, as you can see, I took a little bit of the skin color off the elbow here on the bottom, so I didn't wait long enough. I should have felt to make sure that it was completely dry. Now here, I'm using a sea sponge and using a little bit of black and white. Now you don't want to use just black, because then you don't get the definition of hair. Now I'll show you what I'm talking about. See, you can actually see the strands. If it was all black, you wouldn't be able to see that. You may actually have to mix it a few times, but as the same as the fur technique and the grass technique, you know, you can actually create pretty realistic hair. If you guys haven't seen the tutorial where I did the Marilyn Monroe, go take a look at that. Same technique. Here we're just going to work with the hair, and you want to stick with the pattern. Remember that hair does have a pattern, depending on how you comb it, right? So in this case, you want to stick to make it look realistic. See, I'm kind of starting from the sideburn up, and then I'm moving in and creating the hair flow. See that? Alright, let's do the same with the back. This is also one of the factors that determines how the difficulty of your painting. You know, in this case, I know we're working with stencils, but you know, we're going out of our way to add those extra details. You know, I've always told you, you don't have to have a steady hand to be able to spray paint, and I'm still saying that, but it sometimes helps to just add those finer details. Now, given we're not using a brush, so it's not like you need to be precise, I'm using a sea sponge instead of a brush, but I think that it's the finer details in your painting that'll not only make it stand out, but it'll also give it a little bit more character to it, so it just won't be just another stencil painting, right? It'll be a little bit more than that. That's why I made this tutorial a intermediate level tutorial. Mostly because of the hair. We will be creating a wolf down here on the bottom part. So I suppose you could have cut out the hair and just kind of spray painted it black. In which case, you know, I wouldn't have had to go through all the trouble of making the hair. But it's good practice for me. Can create the grass, right, using the same technique, just going straight up. See that? So in a way, it's kind of like we're adding grass to the top of his head, if you want to think about it that way. All right, let's give him a different hairdo. Let's comb his hair. I wish it was this easy to comb my hair in the mornings. In this tutorial, we're also going to use the liquid latex that I use, as seen in my other tutorials, the church. I can think of a couple. So you're going to need that as well, so that you can cover some of these areas, because as you can tell, we haven't worked on the background yet. So that's coming up, and we're going to need to cover his face, his hair, as well as parts of his arm. There are other tutorials that I do plan on making that's going to go into greater detail on how to create shadows around the face, so it just won't be a stencil. It'll actually be shadows, and it'll look more realistic. For now, we're gonna... Now notice here what I did with the wolf. I just cut out certain parts of the wolf. I don't want the entire wolf. I'm just gonna do some highlights. That way, this is another technique. This way you just know the outline and know what your boundaries are, and you can actually surpass them if you want. See? So I know where his ears are. I know where his eyes will be, his mouth, his hind legs. The tail's going to be up to me. But once again, you know, I have the picture of the wolf, so it's not going to be too hard. Now here we went ahead and added a little bit of orange and then black on top. As I mentioned earlier, orange and black make brown. So I'm just going to mix the two together here. I know what most of you are thinking. Why don't you just get brown paint? Well, oh, it's a long story. I'm actually currently using the Walmart brand, which is Color Place. That's the brand I personally recommend. And they stopped making brown spray paint. Brown, orange, yellow. You can still get red in some places. So they're really testing my creative style here by cutting colors back, and I have to kind of mix my own. The Spraycasso paints are still being made, so you know I'm not too worried about it until they get completely fabricated. We're gonna go ahead and keep using the Walmart brand. I promise you guys, I will have brown, I will have orange, I'll have the colors that these guys decided to take out for some reason. There we go. Let's just add a little bit more hair. Now I'm using the same technique that I used on the hair, same technique that I used on the grass, the same upward moves. Just creating flow to it. Now remember, once again, hair does have a pattern, especially on animals. You can really see it on animals. Nowadays on people you really can't see it. They really like the messed up hairdo look. I guess I'm pretty popular in the mornings because I wake up with that look. And it's very hard to comb it down. That's why I mostly shave my head off as much as possible. Alright, now I mixed in a little bit of white with this in this mixture, and you can really see it here. So it's a lighter brown. Remember, the lighter you add, if you add white to it, the lighter it'll become. If you add dark black to it, the darker it'll become. So just gonna add some few strands here of light. Now you can actually mix color with it too. If you want to add some highlights, you can add some yellow to it. Most of you didn't know this, but I used to do a lot of oil painting. So I do have a background in oil painting, watercolors, charcoals. I've done a little bit of everything. And so those techniques have come in handy, especially when doing something like this. So yeah, I've gotten a lot of emails of you guys asking me, have you done this before? You know, if so, how long? Yeah, actually I've done it for, wow, several years, man. Many years. I was actually part of a team that represented New Mexico, and I used to compete using pastels. So I like pastels. I like the way they mix. Until I discovered spray paints. Then, you know what? It all changed after that. Techniques here is a little bit different. It's kind of a combination of watercolor and acrylic. For those of you artistic types out there. Now make sure that the paint is dry to the touch. Remember guys, I've done this mistake before. You guys don't want to do that, especially if they're paying you for the painting. Alright, now here we know that all our stencils are connected to the upper left hand corner of our painting, so you can place it there, maybe tape it down. That way you know that when you put another stencil on top of it, it'll fit perfectly. Now in this case we're just going to work on the shirt. As you can tell, I removed the shirt. I'm just going to use my hand here. I don't mind getting my finger spray painted once in a while. Make sure you put it right into place. I'll have a nice red on my fingernails. Oh boy. Alright, I'm just going to do a little bit like that. Now let's add some shadows. A little bit of black. You don't want the shirt to be completely red and just stick out. So just on the outlines, I'm going to add a little bit of black. You can even make some ripples on the shirt. Now keep in mind that he's leaning up against a tree, so if you want, you can either add a little bit more highlight on this area, right about there, okay, right there. And you can come back with the straight edge or a flexible straight edge and just give it the effect of ripples. As I was telling you guys, we're going to get into more advanced stencil tutorials where it will be very hard to differentiate that the painting was used creating only stencils. So the paintings will look more realistic. But remember, baby steps. We're getting you guys there. So this is the basic techniques. Especially, I've gotten a lot of emails about where do I get my stencils. Well, this is exactly how I make them. Print out a painting or print out a photograph that I like, and just do a couple of them. Print them out, cut out certain areas, locate a point on my canvas where I know that the stencil will always be the same. Okay, let's see how that looks. Now see how easy it was to create those ripples? It makes your painting look a little bit better, more realistic, so it's not just flat red. Now here we're going to go ahead and speed up the video a little bit, only because it would take a long time. But here I'm just mixing some colors for the wood. This is going to be the tree that's in the background. Now notice how much paint I had to put in the Spraycasso funnel and how much it came out. So yeah, you have to calculate that. It's going to take a few tries. I guess I could speed up as well, right? And just kind of bust out with the... And then we're going to... No, I'm just kidding, guys. I know, bad joke. But do notice the effect of the wood that you have in the background. Notice how it has a really nice flow to it. And you can use the Spraycasso funnel to give it more definition. You could also use the Spraycasso tool. See that? Just go up and down, give it more definition. I went ahead and added a little bit of black to the tree just to give it dimension. Now, this is the part that remember I told you guys that you were going to need the liquid latex. Okay, so I went ahead and I covered my stencil up, so it's actually on there. I know you guys are probably thinking like, what the heck is he doing? Trust me, I'm Spraycasso. I never mess up. I wish that was true, guys, but actually that's how you learn, right? Trial and error. So most of my techniques came from. Here I'm just adding a little bit of blue because I want to give it a blue hue to the background. You guys remember the hue technique, right? So we're gonna go ahead and just add a little bit of blue, and then we're gonna use some black. So let's remove this piece of tape, because otherwise you'll have when you remove it, it'll be a different color than the rest of the painting. So make sure you keep that in mind. I'm going to cover most of this part right here in black. Alright. Pretty easy, right guys? And yet the blue will give it a hue, like a glowing effect on the painting. So it really attracts your attention to the characters. In this case, the wolf and the guy back here. I've watched the movies. I still don't know their names. Or I think Jacob, right? I don't know. Okay. Now notice I only added a little bit of black here in the back. Yeah, I don't want to make it as black as the hair, because then it's just gonna fade completely into the hair. It's gonna look like he's got a weird shaped head. Now the background doesn't necessarily have to be black, guys, but I figured werewolf, right? The first thing that comes to mind is starry night, maybe a full moon. So we're gonna give it that look. Now, if you guys didn't know, this tutorial was actually, if you guys haven't seen my friend, he goes by the name of Shadow Master. He made a tutorial not too long ago. I posted his video on my YouTube page. He does some pretty incredible paintings using just white and black colors. So we decided to do a Twilight theme movie. So if you guys haven't seen his theme, his painting, his tutorial, I'll add a link to it. You guys can go check it out. And so we both agreed that we would do a Twilight. That's where this came from as well. And I've had quite a few emails and personal requests asking me to show how I work with stencils. So I figured this would be a good tutorial for that. Now you guys remember this, right? I use a little Q-tip. You don't want to rub too hard on this stuff because you can actually go right through it and start rubbing on the actual colors itself. So very gently just remove the plastic from it. And you're gonna have to be patient with it, guys. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't scrub too hard, because I've done that before where I'm just trying to get it off, and eventually I rub the wrong colors and they mixes. And of course, I always say everything is fixable, but if you can prevent that, you should try. Alright, so be very careful, very gently. Alright. The more you put of this stuff, the easier it is to remove. Keep that in mind. The thinner the layer, the harder it is. And there you go, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's tutorial. I have a few more planned out for the week, so stay tuned. Until next time, folks, keep those candles shaking.